This is Champions of Tag, a Steam multiplayer online tag game about hunting invisible players. And this is the story of how I achieved it in 8 days. Started off like any other important assets, crying, setting up the project, crying, the boring stuff. But this time I figured I'd approach it differently. I actually decided to go for 3D models and aesthetics first. I thought maybe doing some graphics will actually encourage me to do the game. Started off on a relatively bad note. I tried reusing all the code I used in my Bomberman game and nothing worked. I ended up having to rebuild everything from scratch, realizing that the way I did it in that game was wrong, so I'm gonna have to redo all that from scratch too. It took me about 2 days to figure out a solution for this. The quick and easy way is scene loading was not working right. Trying to move things into an extra scene and move them to the next scene wasn't actually good, so I ended up labeling everything that I wanted to move from one scene to another with a single component that handled it all for me. And with only 6 days left, I had to start thinking about the gameplay. Next was my other major issue, attempting to sync up the players over the network. Does this look right to you? This took a whole evening to fix, and in the end, instead of using a rigid body, I ended up using a character controller. That way I didn't have to rely on physics for this particular game. I made it so that the curve of the jump could be set based on how fast your descent is, how high you can jump. I also added in a dash for hunters to chase, so that it was easier to chase the people that were completely invisible to them. And once I finally got this set up and done, I had 5.5 days and a lot of catching up to do. To finish off the rest of this day, I got the camera sorted. I made it so that when a player joined, they got their own camera. Made everything look nice with some skyboxes. Actually made it so the characters went invisible if they're not the hunter and that footsteps would show. And then starting to look into the Steamworks API, the thing that actually allows you to use Steam inside of your game. This way I could actually play with my friends. With the syncing done, I could actually test people joining and actually going into what would technically be a game, but it's just some people running around. I realized that after a few games, I didn't actually have any core game built yet. I still needed to do stuff like changing the color when someone is making them invisible, actually making so it's synced over the network. Then with the wonderful community over in the Discord server, I figured it out. They helped me generate some ideas as to what I wanted my game to be. Next, some of the ideas was like making it so that when you're the camera pans out, giving you a better idea of where everyone's footsteps would be. Next, I needed some visual cues to tell the hunter that they were it. So to do this, I went to Mixamo again, and I got a dizzy animation, and I used that. Slapped some particles into Unity to make the environment look pretty, and finally added a scoring system. Now at this point, I'd only done a 0 to 100, and the person with the highest score would be the loser, but that didn't really make sense. I did one final playtest, and it was off to nap. This day was an exciting day. It was a day where I started getting some more models into the game. Now obviously the heat had been ramped up a little bit. It's 4 days left, and I got a friend on the server to make me some environment props. Got me to make a box and make that in Blender and then Substance Painter to make it look pretty. I can't do that. I then implemented a simple death animation to visualize when you have run out of life. Now, what's this missing? Ah yes, people. I need people. I added people. Made them do a Mexican wave whenever someone got changed, or if you press the T key. With that, it was more playtesting against all of their wills. Figured out I still had some bugs to deal with and flesh out, but that was a problem for tomorrow's Jordan. Alrighty. Time it's all broken again. Everything started breaking. Sadly, I didn't really have the visuals to demonstrate this, but my lobby system just completely stopped working. I had some joining bugs that was caused by the Steamworks API being upgraded to the most recent version. Decided that's a future Jordan's problem. It's a game jam. I'm not going to be too bothered about fixing that. I moved on to aesthetics. This means post-processing, adding in bloom, adding in vignette, adding in color correction, all that wonderful goodness that actually makes it pop. I started doing post-processing, and this was before and this is after. I also did some light baking, which once again got the same person from the 3D models to help me figure out. Added some ambient occlusion in the settings, and this is its end result in terms for now. So the environment looks nice to some degree. Now I kind of need some more player visualization, so I went on to the running particles, the jump particles, what happens when a person dies, how do I demonstrate this, and what better way than explosions. By this point you think, well, the game is done. At this point I hadn't done the main menu, the UI, the customization, or anything that kind of made this game feel a little bit extra more juicy. So with that in mind, I went to bed and I slept on it. With only 2 days left, I thought what better way to get this done in time than to do a customization system. That means hats, that means glasses, that means syncing that all over the network, that means a UI system for it, and that's exactly what I did. It took me the majority of the day. The hardest and the most boring part was just assigning all of these hats. Going through all the ones that I wanted to have, making sure that they're all undescriptable objects and that, you know, they can spawn on the network, they can despawn on the network. But actually hooking up over the network was a breeze. When someone joins, you take their current index of their hat and their glasses and you visualize that on your local computer. When someone makes a change, that gets updated to the network goes, that person's changed. Everyone goes, all right, change that hat or change those glasses. Then I got more lobby problems. When people leave, it caused desync issues again. I fortunately managed to fix this by botch jobbing and adding a tiny delay to when everybody leaves. Lastly, for the end of the day, I hooked up the UI, I hooked up the customization so every player could edit their own stuff so that when you want to change, your camera pans into just your character, which leaves me with 1 day left. This was crunch time. When you put this much effort into a game like this, it does just eat your time away, and this was no different. I started on focusing by the intro and the outro to the game. How does the game start and how does the game finish when someone wins? For the intro, I literally just pulled everything from Bomberman game into this game. That was relatively quick and easy. For the ending, I wanted something that kind of made you feel special for being the winner. So I had this fade out transition and everything looked relatively easy, right? No, wrong. It wasn't. For some reason, I kept getting complete crashes. My builds would just die. Turns out the reason for that, trying to access an object that doesn't exist on the client because it exists on someone else's client completely destroys it. It makes sense. With about 8 hours left before the deadline, before the submission time, I needed to do sound, UI, music, and the main menu, which I hadn't actually done yet. First, focus on the UI for the main menu. This means getting a splash screen, this means doing the logo, and just getting that little bit of extra polish in there. Next, I added a settings page, and this took roughly about 3 hours in total to get the whole main menu done from scratch. With 5 hours left, I did a few hours of playtesting with a couple minor bug fixes. I had a win streak counter just so you could see how many wins you've dominated with. And with 2 hours left to spare, we managed to get through the Game Jolt submission page. We made everything, we did all the Photoshop requirements to make it look good, to feel polished, and this page is the end result. Now, the big question, did we win? No, we didn't. The rest of the games in there were really good. First place was made by 12 people and was super polished, and second and third place had a relatively unique idea. It is a bit of a shame, but the knowledge I got from building a multiplayer game in 8 days, I'm way happier with that, to be honest. Would I suggest doing something like this in future? No. Absolutely not. 12-hour days for a week and a bit is not healthy for any lifestyle. Now, if you're interested in playing the game, I'm more than happy to stick it on itch or some platform that you can get a hold of it. And with that, I'm out. This was a long jam, and with all the life events, getting married, getting COVID, I'm recording this 3 weeks later than I should have done. So hopefully the next video will be done faster. Bye-bye.